events, and we're going to be starting off with the Transitalia Rally Raid from the island of Elba. The Elba 500, the event which is part of the Italian Rally Raid Championship, with some international racers using it as pre-season warm-up. Some great scenery and some spectacular pictures throughout the course of the programme. And we'll also, throughout the course of the programme, be taking a look at the off-road motorbike scene in some other parts of the world as well. We're also going to have a report on the indoor trial from Levin in France. One of the last rounds of the indoor trial championship in preparation the start of the Outdoor World Championships, which will also be bringing you on future editions of Off-Road Magazine. But we start off with the island of Elba, just off the coast of Italy. The island where Napoleon suffered exile after his bullying in Europe was classified as being a little bit out of the order. Elba was the place that he was sent to, and in fact it turned out to be a very pleasant place to relax and refresh himself and to come back for more. Well, they didn't have any motorbikes back in Napoleon's day, but plenty of motorbikes turning up for this rally raid and the first round of the Italian Championship. The Elba 500 then, the 11th year of this particular event, and an event that has become more and more popular with every passing year. A lot of international motorcycle racers competing on this one because a lot of different vehicles are allowed to compete. Take a look at this huge quad that has come along to the event as well, but not only quads, we've got the odd autocross buggy as well, and even scooters taking part in this event. Well, scooters are going through quite a boom in Italy at the moment, around 400,000 being sold. So an important part of the event and providing plenty of action. Honda pilots as well, also eligible for the event and providing plenty of action. The Costa del Gabbiani on the southern peninsula of the Elba Island, and it's the start of the prologue section. Not a particularly demanding section, this one, a fairly tame field, just basically to set off the starting positions. Let's take a look at some of the favourites. Graziani Matteo starting things off, a man who has competed mainly in motocross and has become, in the recent years, one of Italy's top rally raiders. Alfredo Bevilacqua, an up-and-coming Italian in the rally raid scene, and putting the pressure on Graziani straight away. Giovanni Sala, a many times Enduro world champion. This sort of event not his speciality, but encouraged to race in this one so that he gets some pre-season practice in for his own speciality. Fabio Farioli, also not a specialist on this type of event, but just wants to enjoy this one and build up some practice as well. Heinz Kinnigadner, a name known well to Eurosport viewers, with his experience on rally raids all over the world, particularly events like the Paris-Dakar. Well, he took a fairly steady start, not wanting to get too carried away in the early stages. Franco Muraglia from San Remo, a long-time world champion in the Enduro class, and after 20 years of Enduro riding has changed to rally raids now. Jana Buana, the European Enduro champion, also using this event as a bit of pre-season practice for his Enduro season. And Fabio Fazzola, many times Italian Enduro champion and rally raid champion as well. And he's basically the #1 favourite for the event. Max Wiener, or simply VMAX as he's known, was a motorcycle racer, a Grand Prix racer in the 1970s. Since ending his road racing career, he's competed in all sorts of different types of events. Jürgen Meyer from Ditzingen, one of the top German riders. He's competing in all these type of events, another Paris-Dakar man as well. And Manfred Balle, last seen on the Granada-Dakar, driving this custom-designed rally quad built on the basis of an African twin. Sidecars also included in this, Klaus Krockel and Manfred Buchholz. Brand new custom-built sidecar outfit, only finished a few hours before the race, and in his Honda pilot, Pierluigi Monachesi. Separate Italian championships for the autocross cars this year. Gaspari Momesso, a man who normally spends most of his life working as an aeroplane technician, but he's got this Suzuki RF600, which certainly sounds pretty spectacular. The results of the prologue, which basically just set the running order for the following day and the start of the event proper. So we're taking a look now at the start of the real event and the real terrain on the island of Elba. It's a two-day event on this Transitalia, and the only guide is the road book. They've got a scrolling map on the top of the handlebars, much as we've seen in many of these sort of events in the past, and there are no road signs to follow, so it's a navigational exercise as much as a speed exercise. The island is only 6 kilometers long and less than 4 kilometers wide, but it does mean that the course that is set by the organisers is fairly tortuous, and navigation can be very difficult. Very easy to take a wrong turning, and one or two were certainly doing that throughout the course of the event. Fabio Farioli, multiple world champion in the Enduro class, and looking at this event particularly as practice for the Enduro World Cup. Had a knee operation over the winter months and hasn't had much time to do much training for this type of event, so really needs this sort of event to get ready. He was quick on this first leg, but not really into the navigational side of things so much. All the Enduro riders, well, normally their course is very clearly marked. They don't have to worry about navigation, and some of them struggling a little bit on this type of event. In fact, he picked up a penalty of 5 hours for taking the wrong route and went out of the competition. Fabrizio Caccano on his bike, well, he's normally testing anyway. He's a test rider for Cagiva Husqvarna, and another former Enduro competitor. Also the 1992 Rally Raid champion, and he takes third place on the first day. He also picked up a bit of a penalty, just 5 minutes though for him. Not quite so fast perhaps, but definitely finding the right route through this tricky island course. Giovanni Sala, another many times Enduro world champion. Another one getting ready for the upcoming season, and another man who doesn't particularly like having to read the road book to find his route. He just wants to attack hard and race as quickly as possible. Finding the navigation all a bit of a tiresome chore. Enzo Manenti, 1993 Italian rally champion. And today's Transitalia is the first leg of the championship season, so he wants to try and get his title back that he lost last year. He rides a 4-stroke Kawasaki 250, not a terribly common type of bike in this event, and it really is a bit outpaced by the big 600s. The end of this first day, Enzo Manenti finishing in 4th place. The main source of his income is organising, in cooperation with Christoph Attiger from Switzerland, Enduros throughout this part of Elba. So that gives him an advantage in terms of local knowledge, but he still has to use the road book, still has to navigate his way. So many different tracks that it's possible to use. It's still easy to get lost. He's had a lot of success in previous events, rallies like the Incas Rally and the Nevada Rally as well. Recently he's not involved quite so much, only racing about 3 events a year. Let's take a look from our onboard camera at the style of Fabio Fasola. Chance to see the road book in front. Just on top of the handlebars there, you can see with the direction signals, with distance markings as well, giving him some idea of which routes to take, but all too easy once you get onto the wrong route to then get yourself completely lost. Nevertheless, he managed to increase his lead again, and in fact would go on to win the 1995 Transitalia. Heinz Kinnigadner, well, he let his opponents take the lead in the prologue, and in fact that proved to be a slightly bad move as he ended up running in the dust of his fellow competitors, running behind some of the event leaders. He ended the first day down in 7th place and really attacks on this second day, but in fact he tries too hard and ends up getting lost and is given a penalty of some 5 hours. For Kinnigadner, this is basically just a practice event, a chance for him to keep in training and get ready for some of the other events that we watch him here on Eurosport. So the Austrian from the Tyrol, always spectacular, always very fast, and always very, very popular with all of the spectators as well. Great riding from Kinnigadner, and just about keeping it all together, but that penalty would put him too far down. Fabrizio Caccano had a 5-minute penalty on the first day, but managed to make up for that, and in fact ends up finishing in 2nd place to Fasola at the end of the day. Coming from Varese in Italy, and a little while ago he was one of Italy's top up-and-coming enduro riders. Matteo Graziani was 7th after the first day and really went for it on this second day, managing to take 3rd place overall, and who only started in this sort of event 2 years ago and is already one of the top Italian riders. Winner of last year's championship as well as last year's Transitalia. Not making it 2 years in a row success on Elba, but nevertheless a very competitive showing. Enzo Manenti, well, he's a motorcycle dealer from Rimini and Italian rally champion from 1993. Definitely a specialist in this type of event, which really is quite similar to some of the German enduro rallies as well. He actually won the German title in 1994 and has had success as well on some of the bigger world rally raids as well. Jürgen Meyer, the German from Ditzingen, not having a good day on this second day of the Elba 500. Problems with the road book. In fact, he got lost several times and ended up using tracks that no other bikes were using at all. One stage he came past our cameras twice on the same stage, and it really was proving to be a rather difficult day for the German. Ended up finishing in 13th place overall, and perhaps looking forward to get back on one of the desert rallies. Max Wiener. Now he's 50 years old now, Max Wiener. Certainly not one of the youngest competing, but the man who formerly raced in Grand Prix motorbikes, 6 times a national champion as well, with a runner-up position in World Motorcycle Grand Prix riding. Switched to off-road events just for fun, basically, to enjoy, and certainly doing very well. He managed to earn himself some penalty though, and dropping down the order. Gaspari Momesso on his 600 Suzuki with around about 100 horsepower. Just listen to it as he takes off. A real racing engine, and perhaps not the ideal machine for this type of event. Riccardo Ventura from Torino is the fastest quad driver. He's an Italian champion in this class. Got about 70 horsepower with this 350cc two-stroke engine, and he's certainly pretty impressive as a rider as well. Flipping the throttle, keeping it on a slide. Great stuff from Riccardo Ventura. Pierluigi Monachesi driving his cross car. Well, he has a few problems sometimes staying on the ground, jumping around quite a lot. And meanwhile, on the scooters, Baraba managing to get to the finish line with his visibly damaged machine. Slightly strange directional stability on that one, but he managed to make it through. And lady rider Andrea Meyer, journalist and very experienced off-road rider from Kaufbeuren. Well, she blew her chances on the first day by taking the wrong route too often, but she managed to make it through to the end. And Manfred Baller, well, he certainly was a brave man taking this machine on the tight tracks of the Elba 500. Certainly enjoyed it, even though the machine was probably not ideal for this type of event. So the final results, Fasola taking the win by 9 minutes. With the World Championship outdoor trialling about to start, we're taking a look back at an indoor event held in northern France towards the end of the Indoor World Cup. 8 of the world's best riders competing here in Les Vins in northern France, and Bruno Camozzi, the French hero, the French superstar. Steve Colley from Great Britain, also Dougie Lampkin competing in the event as well, and Donato Emilio from Arona in Italy. Well, there is Doug Lampkin on the factory beta machine, part of the Lampkin heritage of trials riding, and Takumi Narita back in Europe after a winter of training back in Japan. Juan Pons, the Spaniard, now riding in the same team as Donato Emilio and Marc Colomet, probably the favourite for the event on his Montesa. So on with the action and the start of the event. This is the 28-year-old Italian Donato Emilio on the so-called rock and roots section. A clean ride there for Emilio, going through no problem at all. Dougie Lampkin now, the 19-year-old. Young man who finished 6th in last year's Outdoor World Championship on the railway sleeper section. All going very well indeed. Through and out, no problems again for Dougie Lampkin. And it comes down to a head-to-head race between Lampkin and Emilio. The loser has 1 penalty point added to his score, so it's important to try and get a good result here. Well, Lampkin just taking the victory on that from Emilio. And we turn our attention to Bruno Camozzi on the slab section. And he's going extremely well. Marc Colomet now, the 1994 Indoor World Champion on the Montesa with its Works Honda engine. It's a busy week for Colomet. Spanish Championship starting immediately after this event in Les Vins. And these guys certainly kept busy with this sport. Oh, a little mistake, but he's kept his feet on the pegs. That's the important thing. Now, can he get it up? Yes. And he makes it through. So Colomet, great stuff from him. And the runoff now. Colomet versus Camozzi. Through they go. And well, Colomet's Montesa just having the edge over Camozzi's more standard beta. Jean-Luc Nictou, favourite with the French spectators here at Les Vins. Recently made it through to the final of the indoor trial at Bercy. May well have seen here on Eurosport. Recent change of machinery for Nictou, and says it gives him a lot more confidence. Well, good attempt from him. But he would go on to have a fairly disastrous round with 2 5s, maximum scores, maximum penalties, and that would drop him down the order. Narita making a welcome return to the European scene, and we'll be seeing a lot more of him on the Outdoor World Championship, no doubt, throughout the course of this year. And we'll be following the Outdoor Trials World Championship here on Eurosport's new off-road magazine, so keep an eye out for that. The head-to-head between these two, Nictou versus Narita. And it is the Frenchman Jean-Luc Nictou who takes the win there, but it's not enough to take him through into the final. Juan Pons, the Spaniard, on the gas bike. Well, he would actually have a clean ride here and would go into the final, beating off teammate Steve Colley in his heat. Steve Colley himself, very, very competitive on the indoor scene, but not having quite such a good run here in Les Vins. Colley wins the head-to-head but hasn't got enough points to go through to the final. So let's go and turn our attention to the final then, run in the opposite direction to the opening round. And that makes each and every test that little bit harder. Juan Pon's minder at his side, giving him instructions. And getting through very cleanly indeed. Turn our attention to Marc Colomet on the Honda-powered Montesa factory bike. Makes it look so easy, so cool, calm and collected. One of the favourites for this year's outdoor championship, as well as second time indoor trials champion. Beautifully done, Colomet getting through clean, no penalty points against him there. Oh, but a dab for Dougie Lampkin. Father Martin is his minder, his spotter. Former world champion, in fact the first ever trials world champion. Giving advice to his son.
Okay, yeah, looking at the back. You're big skip. Get on it. There, don't look back. Do it there, that's it. Big effort.
Oh.
Okay at the back. Big effort.
Encouraged by his father. Calling for a big effort. Running a little tight on time, but making it through 2 penalty points against him. Bruno Camozzi. Oh, and it goes wrong. It all went wrong really for him. 5 a maximum penalty there, and not going well for him. Colomet on the same section, and well, very difficult section, obviously. Unusual to see Colomet making that sort of mistake. What about Dougie Lampkin? Can he do any better? 20 seconds left, says Father Martin. There is a limit on the amount of time through each section. And he makes it through easy. Great performance. A 0 on that one, so that really gives him a big advantage. Juan Pon's on the cable reel section. And it's extremely difficult going this way round. Easier the other way round in the first lap of the course. Oh, dear, and well, that's it. 5 penalty points, both feet on the ground. Colomet, any better? Yeah, great stuff, makes it to the top. Now the pressure's on Lampkin. He's got to clean it as well, really. Oh. Colomet making it through. So what can Lampkin do? Can't afford to get a maximum score penalty here, 5. But he has got an advantage still over Colomet. A dab there, so that's 1 point against him, but probably better that than to risk coming off the bike altogether. And through the rest of it, no problem at all. So the head-to-head race between him and Bruno Camozzi. Well, Camozzi winning that one, in fact against Juan Pons, but not enough for Camozzi to take a position in the top 3. The other runoff. There's Dougie Lampkin on the right of the picture against Marc Colomet on the left. And well, Colomé made it to the end first, but it's not enough to take the overall win at Les Vins, because Dougie Lampkin took his first indoor trial success with an excellent performance, winning it from Juan Pons and Marc Colomé, the two Spaniards behind him, with Bruno Camozzi in 4th place. Well, we'll be bringing you the first round of the Outdoor World Championship from Wacken in Luxembourg in later editions of the Eurosport Off-Road magazine. The trophies given out: Marc Colomé and Juan Pons, 3rd and 2nd, but winner, the British rider, Dougie Lampkin. We'll be back with some pretty weird and wonderful off-road motorbiking for the last part of our off-road magazine. See you in just a moment. It's basically an enduro-type competition right across Euroring's chilly terrain and some fairly tricky riding conditions, that's for sure. Regulations are pretty straightforward. As long as the ground is frozen and extremely slippery, then that's all that seems to matter. But it's not very easy to keep it all balanced sometimes. Nobody quite seems to know what the course should be either, which doesn't help. Course markings not being terribly accurate, and there certainly is some weird and wonderful machinery taking part here in Hungary. What an unusual event, that's for sure. And to be honest, no one knows who won the event in the end anyway. But it's certainly clear that everybody had a good time. Even if one or two were rather bruised and bashed by the end of the event. At the end of the day, a chance to warm up and to grab something to eat. That's the event from Hungary. Well, let's turn our attention from Hungary now to Austria and to the Österreich ring, but slightly different type of event to the sort of motor racing that we've seen from that classic Austrian circuit. With this, the first leg of the Austrian Enduro Championship. Well, in fact, this was not the first round of that championship because that had to be cancelled. But most of the competitors who were going to do the first round decided to come and do this event instead. It's the Remato Cup, an enduro without rating from the International Federation of Motorcycle Racing, but nevertheless excellent practice for the enduro competitors. Some fairly difficult and demanding conditions with some hill climbing on some very rutted, muddy routes, as you can see, and with some heavy snowfall at the time of the event as well, just adding to make the conditions even more difficult. There's basically been quite a rise in the number of enduro competitors from Austria. A new scene is emerging, but the man who went on to take success here, Klaus Strohmeier from Graz, went on to win all of the classes. Oh, and that's what happens if you don't carry enough momentum. Sometimes you just can't quite keep the balance. Oh dear. Never mind, fire up again, and off you go. On to the final hill climb section, and there we can see the results with Strohmeier on his KTM winning it from another 2 KTMs of Schaffer and Schober. Taking a look now at the first leg of the Italian Enduro Championships from Vibo Valentina in Calabria. Southern Italy, this part of Italy, ideal venue for the first round of the Enduro Championship. And plenty of competitors turning out. However, this part of Italy, also known for the odd theft or two, and in fact during the first night 2 of the big 4-stroke bikes were taken from the Parc Fermé, and as a result they had to annul the finishing positions from that category. Stefano Passeri, fully recovered from his coronary operation and was going well. Giorgio Grasso, 2 times world champion, also recovered from a kidney injury that he had suffered. Giovanni Sala, well, always very quick this man, and he set the fastest time for all the classes on both days. And the 350 world champion Mario Rinaldi won the 4-stroke section on the first day, but on day 2 it was his great rival Arnaldo Nicoli. Angelo Signorelli, a former champion, has changed his allegiance to the Aprilia concern, but as a private rider because the contract has no official backing anymore. Giuseppe Gallino, getting himself into some bother, riding on the Honda. And Paolo Felegara, no longer with the toe-tip team, riding for Madrigali Honda. Fabio Farioli, a man we saw earlier in the programme, again competing, having done very little training thanks to that knee operation. Had some technical difficulties on the first day, but although he won it on the second day because of the annulment of the results after those stolen bikes, his victory didn't count any longer. So the final results in the various classes, and we'll be seeing more of that later in the year. On now to one of the classic off-road motorcycle events, the Le Touquet, the 20th running of the Le Touquet Enduro, the French beach spectacular, with hundreds of competitors competing every year. It was founded in 1975, this event, by Thierry Sabine, who was later killed in an accident. The event has certainly retained all of its original attraction, and although these days not quite so many riders compete as in its former glory days when around 1,500 competitors were on the event, still around 800 started this year. Thousands upon thousands of fans, and in fact 300,000 people turning up to watch in 1995, filling the bars of the Le Touquet area and enjoying the spectacle of the race. There's hardly a European or first-class rider of this type that hasn't competed on Le Touquet in the 20 years that it's been held, and it's certainly something that all of the top riders have had to experience at least one time in their life. Well, an amazing event, as you can see, and complete chaos half the time, but still quite an event to actually get through to the finish of as well. A lot of the top riders have actually withdrawn from competing on Le Touquet, not being one of the safest of events perhaps, and a little worried about injuries preventing them from competing in their more normal championship. It's also an expensive event to enter. Stefan Petter Hansel entered the Le Touquet this year, but that was basically down to being asked to do it by Yamaha France. And the day before, he'd actually done a very tough enduro event, which meant that he wasn't in the best form for the event itself. He had fuel problems and would end up finishing in 16th place. The winner of Le Touquet is Dutchman Kees van der Ven with 5 consecutive victories in the past, and Belgian Eric Gaboas has had 3 wins. But the winner this year was Arnaud de Meester, the Frenchman. He took the lead in just the dying moments of the race, the last half an hour in fact, when Jérôme Belval, the winner of 1994, fell and went out of the race. So de Meester winning it from Hawkier and Klutz at the end of the 1995 Le Touquet. The first round of the German Enduro Championship took place in Kaltenkirchen in northern Germany. The Onkel Tom's Hut received full German championship status this year. Current and many-time winner of the event, Dirk von Zitzwetz, had some starting problems, which earned him some 60 penalty points for not being able to get away on time. Alfie Cox, the South African, is a good entry for the German Championship, raising its profile as well. He's competing in Europe and in various World Championship events as well. But a good point about these German Enduro Championships is the international interest. Czechs, Slovaks and Alfie from South Africa. There are also 2 Finns on the event, Tianen and Sylvan. Tianen in fact proving very, very quick on the opening event. And somewhat surprising, Zitzwetz, who was expecting to be the fastest on this occasion. In fact, it was Tianen, the Finnish world champion, beating Zitzwetz in the 4-stroke class on both days. And even though Zitzwetz was practically on his home ground. Well, Sylvan also going very well, the other Finn, also taking victory in the other class. So a good day for the Finnish riders. Kaltenkirchen route some 50 kilometers north of Hamburg. Certainly one of the tougher events on the German schedule. Referred to by some of the top riders as the Hell of the North because of its deep sand and muddy passes as well. Local club always putting on a very good event, even if some of the competitors might sometimes find themselves getting into a little bit of difficulty. There has to be a way somehow. But sometimes the way can be hard to find. A few more hands. Trying to make light work. But even that sometimes doesn't work. Well, they got out eventually, and there we can see the winners of the various classes. Well, we're back to Elba once again. A full turn in this week's off-road magazine. The Costa del Gabbiana again. Not the Transitalia this time, but the second leg of the Swiss Enduro Championships of 1995. Initial scrutineering for all of the bikes, but the paperwork not too intense. The Swiss hold their Enduro Championship almost exclusively abroad, especially in France and in Italy as well, which is where the very best enduro terrain is to be found. Sometimes the courses set are so difficult that only a few of the riders actually manage to make it through to the finish. But the Swiss certainly enjoying the opportunity to compete on the terrain here at Elba. There are two categories in the championship. There's the open two-stroke category and the open four-stroke class as well. In the two-stroke class, most of them are riding 250 and 350cc engine machines, whereas in the four-stroke, slightly bigger engines, 350, 400s, with the odd 600cc engine as well, but they're a little bit more rare. Oh, just struggling their way through the tricky terrain. There's a veterans class and a guest class as well, giving all sorts of people the opportunity. But sometimes the terrain catching out even the more experienced riders. The event's organised by Christoph Attiger and Fabio Fasola. And Attiger was the man responsible for the increasing popularity of enduro events in Switzerland. Oh dear, and well, once you get off that track, it all too easily goes wrong. The course on Elba itself consists of 100% off-road trails, a few roads that may be used for deliveries to some of the outlying farms and places of habitation, but basically some very, very tricky routes devised by the organisers. Oh dear, and well, when the balance goes, there's not a lot you can do, but try and leave the bike as quickly as possible. Well, Michel Joliat was the defending champion, challenger Bruno Corelli from France, but riding with a Swiss licence. Another top man is Melchior Gung, the former motocross rider, also turning his attention to enduro. In the four-stroke class, former trial rider Bertrand Favre is well favoured, as is Heinz Friedrich and Nicolas Eberhardt as well. Well, this was the beginning of a very difficult hill climb section. For the professionals, not too many problems, but for some of the less experienced amateur riders, this was to prove rather too difficult. The last thing you want to do is stop. But sometimes it goes even worse than that. It's a tough job, but at the end of the day, if you can make it to the top, then you can really feel as though you've achieved something. The problem is when you get stuck halfway, it's not always very easy to turn either way. Well, that was the second round of the Swiss Enduro Championships on Elba. It might have been some pretty poor weather in the northern parts of Europe, but on this island, conditions were absolutely perfect. Ideal for the whole off-road weekend, and an event thoroughly enjoyed by the competitors. And so too the results of the Swiss Enduro Championships after the first 2 rounds of the series. Michel Joliat leading the 2-stroke class and Bertrand Favre leading the 4-stroke category. Well, that's the end of Eurosport's first off-road motorbike magazine, and we'll be back with more off-roading on May the 16th, when we'll be taking a look at the Enduro World Championship, the Rally of Tunisia as well.